The Fed, ban Ben Bernanke in, well, the world according to Congressman Ron Paul. That's exactly what would happen. So in today's Reaganomics, I'm asking, does the role of the Fed, in fact, need to be amended or need to be ended? Congressman Kevin Brady, Republican from Texas, testified at Congressman Paul's end of the Fed hearing this morning. Economist Bob Brusca is also back with us on the show to weigh in. Congressman Brady, great to see you. Welcome to the program. I know you don't go
Trish.
as far as Ron Paul, but what's your prescription for the Federal Reserve? What would you like to see happen?
Look, I want the role of the Fed. I want us to get it right from Congress. I want to give them political independence to actually achieve that, and I want to hold them accountable long run. I think the dual mandate, employment and price stability, it's politically appealing, but the truth is the Fed can't control job creation. Over time, though, they can preserve the purchasing power of the dollar, and that price stability actually creates the strongest foundation for job growth and economic growth.
You know, Congressman Brady, let me just play devil's advocate here and just point out that you say you don't want to politicize the Fed, and yet here you are having hearings and saying that we need to change the mandates of the Fed. Isn't that a politicization, if that's a word, in and of itself?
Actually, no, actually, it's the opposite. A single mandate isn't Republican or Democrat. In fact, we had 3 decades under a single mandate where we won World War II, 3 decades of prosperity, put a man on the moon. The truth is the dual mandate is fairly new. It has not worked out well because, again, we're charging the Fed to control what it cannot control. So my thought is, look, for the strongest economy going forward and the political independence of the Fed, let's get their role right.
Economist Bob Brusca, does this make sense to you? I mean, are we asking the Federal Reserve to take on just too much?
Well, I think so. And since economists don't believe in the Phillips curve, we don't think there's a trade-off between unemployment and inflation. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to give the Fed this mandate to try to do something with growth when we think that monetary policy can't do much with it. For years, under Paul Volcker and Alan Greenspan, the Fed took the position, and this was under the dual mandate, they took the position that the Fed did the most that it could do for growth in the long run by keeping inflation low. And so they actually joined the dual mandate under one idea, which was price stability actually did the most for keeping prices stable and keeping growth at its maximum sustainable rate. And when Bernanke came, he unbundled them and put us back in this quandary.
And Congressman Brady, do you consider it then a distraction for the Fed to have to be watching employment so carefully when, as you and economist Bob Brusca agree that it should be focused primarily on price stability?
You know, I think the Fed, after the financial crisis, and I do credit them with some key actions to calm those waters, but since then, I think they've been trying to do way too much in invoking the dual mandate, the employment portion of it, when in truth, I think their constant intervention is actually creating more uncertainty in the market. And my other fear is that as the Fed continues to act, Congress is shirking its responsibility to deal with the key issues on tax, on regulatory issues, on getting our financial house in order. And I want Congress and the White House to start doing their job.
All right, Bob, let's take this a step further. Ron Paul would like to see the Fed done away with entirely. What would that look like?
Well, imagine the financial crisis without any lender of last resort to do anything special. Imagine money market funds breaking the buck and not having anybody to kind of providing the lending for them. Imagine the European banks having all of this problem, the shortage of dollars, and no Fed there to engage in swap agreements so that they can get a hold of dollars so they can stabilize the European banking system.
So this would be a disaster, in your opinion?
Disaster would probably be a nice word, yeah.
But, and I'll play Ron Paul here. This will be my weak attempt at playing Ron Paul, but I bet you he would say no, because you would have market forces at work. And things like the European debt crisis, they'd be over and done with quickly, as opposed to being prolonged as they are now.
Yeah, but the problem is what you would have is market farces at work. And the problem is in business cycles and financial crises, markets take on very strange personalities. And markets do things that are not really very market-like. And they don't put the right prices on assets. And they drive things to extreme. And all kinds of things happen where you need a calmer hand to come in and to cool things. And without having that hand to calm those turbulent waters where where things get worse and worse and then get as bad as you could imagine and then get twice as bad, then the crisis just, you don't come back from it.
You don't have enough faith in the markets from what I'm hearing, Bob Brusca. Congressman Brady, do you have any more faith, or do you agree with the economists that it would be that disastrous if we lost the Fed?
Look, I see it from the Washington standpoint, which is the thought of 535 members of Congress conducting monetary policy for America scares the heck out of me. The truth is,
in other words, it could be worse, right?
It could. You know, that lender of last resort approach, making sure we provide liquidity to solvent banks, dealing with the interest rate, on the price stability, deflation, and inflation. Those are key roles for the Fed to play. I just want to make sure Congress gets their role right, gives them the independence, and holds them accountable.
Do you fear that they don't have enough independence right now, Congressman?
Well, no, and in fact, what worries me is I believe when they start to enter into the housing market, rather than exiting, continuing to build the Fed balance sheet, in fact, they've invited politics into them. As you know, subsidies die hard in Washington. They'll face tremendous political pressure, not to exit that market. I think it's a real threat to their independence to have them involved in credit allocation in the economy. The Sound Dollar Act ends that, except in cases of emergency, which I think is the right approach.
Bob, because the Fed has been, like it or not, somewhat politicized throughout the last 4 years and part of just everything that it's been through, do you think we will see a new Fed chairman if we see a new administration?
Well, if it's Mr. Romney, he said unequivocally that he would fire Mr. Bernanke. So
yes.
Unless he flip-flops on that issue, yes.
Oh, ouch. Final word to you, Congressman Brady. What is your prescription for what exactly you'd like to see the Federal Reserve look like over the next couple of years?
I want the Fed to have a clear target. I want them to have a rules-based approach to price stability so there isn't all this guessing for the market or for themselves. I want to make sure that we have all voices in the economy represented on the Federal Open Markets Committee, which is why we expand that voting membership to all the regional Federal Reserve presidents. So I just think some common sense reforms, and we're starting the discussion today with hearings that we're having today.
All right. Thank you very much, Representative Kevin Brady of Texas, Bob Brusca of Fact and Opinion Economics. Well, coming up, the Rangers